The moment her Lexus screeched to a stop outside my ranch, I didn't need to check the license plate. I knew it was her. Oversized sunglasses, leopard print blouse, and the fury of someone who just found out the world didn't revolve around them. She didn't knock, she barked. Open it right now. And I knew this gate wasn't just keeping people out. It was about to blow the lid off a scandal big enough to bring down an entire HOA. You ever stand on your own land and have someone tell you it doesn't belong to you? Do you ever get fined by people who don't own a single square inch of the road they're trying to control? Well, I did, and I didn't just fight back. They turned their own rules against them, publicly, legally, and permanently. This isn't just a story about a ranch gate. It's about how a small-town HOA got drunk on power. How they trespassed, tampered with ballots, laundered money through family businesses, and how one man, armed with a binder, a deed, and a few trail cams, brought it all crashing down. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to take you through everything. How a cow trail turned into a courtroom. How a community woke up to years of fraud. And how the woman who tried to take my land ended up taking a mugshot instead. So, if you've ever dealt with an HOA, if you've ever wondered how far they'd go before someone stopped them, buckle up. Because this story, it starts with a locked gate. It's with a full-blown federal investigation. I was fixing a loose hinge on the east fence when I heard the tires screech. Dust kicked up off the gravel like smoke, and a silver Lexus came to a hard stop just inches from my ranch gate. And that's when I saw her again. Nation Dobbins, HOA president, suburban warlord, queen of passive-aggressive letters and unannounced compliance checks. She swung her door open before the engine even cooled and marched toward me, all sunglasses and attitude. Open this gate, right now. I didn't move. Just leaned against the steel post, arms crossed, watching her like I'd watch a fox sniffing around my chicken coop. You lost, Nyan? This gate, she snapped, is a clear violation of Section 6, Paragraph 4. You're obstructing a community road. I laughed. It's not a community road. Read the plat map. It's mine. She looked like I just told her Santa Claus was fake, her voice pitched up like a blender hitting a spoon. That's ridiculous. These roads are under HOA authority. We maintain them. You do, huh? I said, stepping forward. Because I've got the county records that say otherwise. I pointed at the dirt under her designer heels. That road. That's private easement, recorded deed. Bought it at auction when the developer went belly up. She blinked. That's impossible. No, but your understanding of property law is. Now look, I get it. To someone like her, this gate was an insult. A slap in the face. A big steel no welded across what she thought was her kingdom. But I wasn't trying to pick a fight. I was protecting what I owned. Let me ask you something. Has anyone ever barged into your space, your yard, your driveway, your life, and acted like you were the intruder? If you've ever had to stand your ground against someone drunk on authority, hit that like button. And if you've got your own crazy HOA story, I want to hear it in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because this gate, it was just the beginning. Former relation. 9 wasn't done. She jabbed her manicured finger at the keypad. You're required to leave this open during daylight hours. There's a community trail right there. I raised an eyebrow. That's a cowpath. It connects to the nature loop. It connects to a manure pile. Want me to post a warning sign? He puffed up like a peacock in mating season. I'll fine you. You want to fine me for locking my own gate on my own road. After I grinned. Go ahead, I'll frame it next to the last 5. She stormed back to her SUV, kicking up more dust than her tires. And as I stood there watching her disappear down my road, yes, my road, I knew this wasn't over. She wasn't the type to lose quietly. But here's the thing she did. I'd played this game before. Twice. And I won both times. What I didn't know, though, was that the next move she'd make wouldn't just be petty. It'd be public. A few days later, a vinyl sign showed up on my fence line. Evergreen Trails Spring Festival, public welcome. And just like that, the war wasn't just at the gate anymore. It was on my land. It started with a cheap vinyl sign. White background, clip art flowers. Staked into the dirt just past my eastern fence line, like someone had wandered onto my property, shoved a birthday invitation in the ground, and left before I could say no thanks. Coming soon, Evergreen Trail Spring Festival public welcome. Hardly welcome? On my land? I stood by my pickup, arms crossed, just staring at the thing like it might sprout legs and walk away if I glared hard enough. I didn't need to measure. I knew where my property ended, down to the inch, and that sign was planted a good 15 feet onto my land. No HOA notice, no heads up, just a sign, like it was theirs to use. 10 minutes later, a white maintenance van rolled up like it was delivering joy. 2 guys in reflective vests jumped out, started unloading chairs, a folding table, one of those blue canopy tents that flaps in the wind like it's trying to take off. I walked over, calm, friendly. You know, polite cowboy. "Morning, fellas, you got permits to set that up here?" The guy with the clipboard looked up like I'd just ruined his birthday. "We were told this is HOA land. Festival's on Saturday." "Told by who?" "President Dobbins." Of course. I pointed at a metal stake half buried in the dirt nearby. "That's a survey pin. County certified. You're standing on private property." The guy blinked, looked at the other worker, whispered something I didn't catch. Then they quietly packed up like 2 kids sneaking out of a neighbor's garage with stolen candy. When they drove off, I took a picture of the sign, pulled it up, and tossed it into my barn, next to last year's HOA banner and the folding table they forgot after their trail beautification brunch. I thought that was it. A sign, a warning, a quiet retreat. But I forgot one thing. Nay never quits after round 1. That evening I found a white envelope in my mailbox. No stamp, no return address, just slid in like a mob threat wrapped in HOA letterhead. Inside was a typed notice full of legal fluff and fake authority. "Your obstruction of community access roads and interference with planned HOA events constitutes a violation of community cohesion policies. You are hereby ordered to remove all unauthorized barriers. Cease any actions that may cause disruption to communal activities." Signed in a squiggle that looked like a drunk chicken trying to draw a heart. I didn't crumple it. Didn't even smirk. I slipped it into my binder, right between survey maps verified and previous threats documented. That made 4 letters, all threats, all bogus. And I wasn't collecting them for fun. If you've ever been slapped with a fake warning or a bogus fine from your HOA, drop a comment below. You're not alone. And if you think this is where it ends, think again. Because the next time they showed up, they brought balloons, music, and a bouncy castle. The festival hit Saturday morning. I woke up to music echoing over the pasture, kids laughing, folding tables being set up just beyond my locked gate. Me? I grabbed my flannel, my coffee, and that one thing HOA never saw coming. A 3-inch binder of receipts, records, and every law they were about to break. It wasn't even 9 a.m., and there was a bouncy castle inflating just beyond my front gate. Not a metaphor. An actual inflatable castle, blue, red, yellow, flapping in the wind like some carnival trailer had rolled through my cattle fence. I stood at the keypad, flannel shirt half-buttoned, steaming mug in one hand, binder in the other. Behind the gate, HOA volunteers were unloading folding chairs, coolers, boxes of balloons. Kids were already running around in the field, my field. And at the center of it all, Nain, green satin sash slung over one shoulder like she was running a charity 5K, directing traffic, smiling like she owned the world. She spotted me, smile gone in half a second. "You're late," she said. "Late for what?" "Almost Spring Festival. You were sent a notice." And I ignored it. I held up the binder like a sheriff flashing a warrant. "Because you're hosting an event on land that doesn't belong to you." She scoffed, looked around like she was trying to summon backup from the balloons. "Don't be difficult. We've done this 3 years in a row. Not on this side you haven't, and not while I've owned it." I pulled out a copy of the county road dedication file, unfolded it right in front of her. "These roads, these fields, never transferred to the HOA. You've been trespassing." She didn't take the paper, just stood there, lips pressed so tight they went pale. "We have a lawyer." "Your lawyer's bluffing. I spoke to the county attorney this week. These roads are private easements, always have been, always will be." Her face turned red enough to match the bounce house. "This is sabotage. You're disrupting a community event." "Nope. You're using my land without permission. That's not disruption, that's theft." I could see it in her eyes. She wanted to scream, to hurl a clipboard, maybe even throw a balloon at me just for dramatic effect. But before she could let loose, cue the sheriff. The cruiser rolled up behind her, dust cloud curling around the tires. Deputy Herrera stepped out like he'd walked straight out of a Clint Eastwood movie. Aviators on, no expression, hand resting gently on his belt. "Mr. Callahan?" He nodded. "Ma'am," he said to 9. Much less warmly. "We received a call about unlawful use of private property. That you?" She turned, flustered. "This is a misunderstanding. We've always held events here." "You got paperwork?" Herrera asked me. I handed him the binder. He flipped through it slowly. Plat maps, deed records, HOA correspondence, certified filings. Each one like a punch to the foundation she built her little empire on. He shut the binder with a light thump. "Ma'am, these roads weren't transferred to the HOA. This event is on private land. But the permits. No permit was filed with the county. You didn't notify public services. You didn't even get permission from the landowner. I'll call my attorney. You'll also need to move these vehicles within the hour, or we'll begin towing." She froze. And just like that, the bounce house started deflating. Slowly, sadly. Like her reputation. If you've ever wanted to pop a bouncy castle with facts and county records, go ahead and smash that like button. And hey, if you're still watching, that means you're the kind of person who loves truth, drama, and maybe a little justice. Subscribe. You're in good company here. By noon, the grass was empty. No more folding chairs. No more kids running wild on my pasture. Just one woman, red-faced, quietly collecting trash like a kid forced to clean up after her own tantrum. That night, I got an email. Subject line: "I saw what happened. I used to be on the board." His name was Conrad. And what he had? Wasn't just gossip. It was a flash drive full of secrets. That night, I was just finishing up feeding the dogs when my inbox pinged. Subject line: "I saw what happened today. I used to be on the board." The name at the bottom? Conrad Velez. Didn't ring a bell at first, but then I remembered. Tall guy, wore polos year-round, always looked like he'd rather be anywhere else during HOA meetings. He'd resigned 2 months ago with no explanation. His message was short, but it hit like a shovel. "I have files, emails, invoices. I think you'll want to see them." I replied with one word. "Where?" We met the next day behind the old feed store off Highway 17. The place still had the same rusted tractor out front and a bell over the door that rang like a cow had kicked it. We sat in the back. Dusty shelves. Old seed bags. No one to overhear us. Conrad looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Wrinkled shirt. Shaky hands. Eyes scanning the windows like someone might be listening. "I didn't know how deep it went," he said, sliding a manila folder across the table. "Not until I saw the maintenance invoices." Inside were color printouts of spreadsheets, HOA checks, email threads. Each one lined up like dominoes. The same vendors. Same addresses. Every one of them tied to an LLC owned by, wait for it, Nahan's brother. Landscaping, event rentals, Even that new guard shack by the entrance, all billed to the HOA, but run through companies she controlled. He shook his head like he was still trying to believe it himself. She signed off on every one. No board votes, no approvals, just pushed it through. I leaned back in the chair, flipping through the documents. The numbers weren't small. $2,800, 0 cents here. $5,200, 0 cents there. Across the year, over $90,000, 0 cents paid to vendors with family ties. And not a single vote recorded. Ever wonder where your HOA dues actually go? Yeah, so did I. And if you've ever had a sneaking suspicion something shady's going on behind the boardroom door, let me know in the comments. You're probably not crazy, just paying attention. I looked up at him. And you ever report this? I tried. Sent it all to the Department of Consumer Affairs. Never heard back. And then, suddenly, the treasurer resigned. Let me guess. Replaced by Nyan's cousin. He nodded. That's when I knew this wasn't just favoritism. It was a network. A family-run HOA scheme dressed up in paperwork and potlucks. There's more, he said, lowering his voice. I saw envelopes, dozens, in her garage. HOA ballots. Some unopened, some steamed open and resealed. It froze. Financial fraud was one thing. Election tampering? That would bring in the DA. And just like that, this gate dispute wasn't just about property lines. It was about power. Stolen power. I thanked Conrad, pocketed the flash drive, and drove straight home. That night, I didn't sleep. I built a timeline, labeled every folder, double-checked every vendor. As by morning I'd be standing in front of the deputy district attorney. And what I brought wasn't a complaint. It was a case. By the time the sun came up, my kitchen table looked like the scene of a crime drama. Flash drive plugged in. Laptop open. Sticky notes everywhere. Names, vendor IDs, check amounts, all color-coded like I was prepping for a Senate hearing instead of dealing with a homeowners association. But make no mistake, this wasn't just a neighborhood tiff anymore. This was fraud. Plain, simple, paper trail kind of fraud. That morning I walked into the county courthouse with a folder so thick it had to be clipped and rubber banded. Deputy District Attorney Melissa Rohr met me in a windowless office that smelled like paper and 40 years of fluorescent light bulbs. She wore a gray blazer and spoke with the kind of voice that didn't rise, didn't fall, it just cut. Mr. Callahan, she said, what have you brought me today? Receipts, I replied, and a story your office might want to follow. I handed her the flash drive and a printed summary. Watched as she opened a spreadsheet labeled Vendor Disbursements, Q1 to Q4. She scrolled. Stopped. Whistled. $2,000 paid to one company, she asked. Across 4 quarters? Cross-check the name, I told her. It's Naines Brothers LLC, landscaping, event rentals, even a security kiosk. All without board approval. She clicked into another folder. Bank statements. Check stubs, missing vote records. You compiled all this? I've got time, and a slow internet connection. She leaned back, arms crossed. You're not just a rancher, are you? I smiled. Used to investigate municipal fraud cases, retired early, bought land, grew a beard, thought I was done with nonsense. She didn't smile. You realize if we open this up it'll go public, news, neighbors, everyone will know. Good, I said, because I'm not the one who needs to worry about exposure. If you're still with me, go ahead and hit that like button. Because the only thing HOA bullies fear more than cameras is cold, hard documentation. 2 days later, subpoenas were issued. The sheriff's department served them in person at the HOA clubhouse. 9 tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding. The board approved everything informally, she insisted. But when they asked for minutes, votes, or any shred of paper proving her story, she came up empty. It was fast. What unraveled next? It wasn't just financial. It was systemic. Board members started resigning. Residents started whispering. And the foundation of her little HOA fiefdom started to crack. But the money? That was just the first domino. Because when Conrad mentioned those ballot envelopes, unopened, some steamed, others mismatched, I realized this wasn't just embezzlement. It was election tampering. And in this country, we don't mess around with ballots. Especially not when they decide who gets to fine your grandma for planting the wrong shade of petunias. You know, it's one thing to steal money. It's another to steal power. Especially when that power comes from something as sacred, yeah, I said it, as voting. See, HOA elections aren't exactly headline news. No one's lining up on CNN to talk about who got the most votes for landscaping oversight chair. But inside neighborhoods? That little envelope you mail in? It decides who gets to run your life, or at least your lawn. So when Conrad told me about the ballots, I felt my stomach turn. She kept them in her garage, he said. Boxes of them, some still sealed, some clearly tampered with, steamed open, resealed. Names didn't match the voter rolls. He had only seen it once, passing by when Nyan left the garage door open. But it was enough, because now this wasn't just fraud. It wasn't just nepotism or shady invoices. It was election interference, which, in the state of California, that's a felony. I took the information to Rourt, the deputy DA, showed her the affidavit Conrad was willing to sign, showed her the timeline of HOA board elections over the last 3 years, and then I asked her one simple question. If someone wins a seat by manipulating the count, does every fine they approve become invalid? She nodded. If it's proven, yes, it's fruit of a poisoned tree. And suddenly, this wasn't just about justice for me. It was about every homeowner who got fined $75.00 for having the wrong mailbox color. Every single person who lost an election by 2 or 3 votes. Have you ever voted in an HOA election? Did you ever wonder what happened to your ballot? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe if you think HOA elections should be as honest as they are petty. By the following Monday, county officers obtained a warrant to search Name's residence. They found dozens of ballots, some unopened, others resealed, one even torn and taped back together like a kid trying to fix a test they flunked. There were postmarked envelopes that had never been counted, votes missing, votes duplicated, and one candidate, a woman who lost by just 3 ballots the year before, nearly fainted when she heard the news. "We were told we didn't have enough support," she whispered. Turns out, we had it all along. That moment, it hit different. Because HOA elections, no matter how small time they seem, still matter. They decide who holds power, who gets to make the rules, who controls your peace, your property, your privacy. And when someone rigs that, it's not just undemocratic, it's personal. At that point, the HOA was cornered. But they didn't come out swinging. They came out begging. A certified letter arrived, this time from their attorney. They didn't want to fine me anymore. They wanted to negotiate. And me? I wasn't interested in payback. I wanted something more permanent. The letter came on a Tuesday. Certified. Cream envelope. No threats this time, just formality. Inside was a carefully worded olive branch. Dear Mr. Callahan, in light of recent developments and in the spirit of community healing, the Evergreen Trails HOA would like to propose a formal agreement regarding access to the private roads you currently control. Terms of compensation and liability to be negotiated at your convenience. They didn't want a war anymore. They wanted a deal. I can respond right away. Instead, I went for a long walk. Started at the southern fence line, past the east gate, looped behind the old barn. The roads were quiet. No more banners, no more balloon arches or folding tables. Just gravel and dust and the occasional hawk circling overhead. And as I walked, I thought about every resident who'd ever been fined for something absurd. For having their trash cans out 10 minutes too long. For planting daisies instead of approved roses. For hanging a flag an inch too low. Fines signed off by a board that wasn't even legally elected. And now those same people wanted to negotiate? When I got back, I drafted a reply. Met their lawyer in person. No suit, no tie. Just my boots, a clean shirt, and the truth. I'm not interested in compensation, I told him. He blinked. Then, what are you interested in? I slid a piece of paper across the table. It had 3 bullet points. Public declaration. A statement posted and mailed to every homeowner acknowledging that the roads in question are private easements, not HOA property. Refunds. Full repayment of every fine collected based on infractions on land the HOA never had authority over. New elections. A full HOA board election, supervised by the county recorder's office and observed by nonpartisan volunteers. He stared at the list like it might bite him. That's quite a demand. No, I said. That's accountability. You want peace, earn it. If you believe justice shouldn't come with a price tag, hit that like button. And if you've ever dreamed of flipping the script on your own HOA, drop a comment and tell me what you'd change first. Also, if you're new here, consider subscribing, because this next part, it's the one they didn't see coming. By the end of the week, the board caved. They signed the declaration, mailed it, posted it, framed it on the clubhouse bulletin board like a confession pinned to the wall. Refunds started rolling out. 80-plus homeowners got checks, some for $75.00, others for nearly $400.00. And the election? Set for 2 weeks later. Overseen by the League of Women Voters. 9 didn't run. She listed her house quietly, hoping to slip away before the ballots hit the mailbox. But by then it was too late. Because the story, it wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to every neighbor who finally stood up and said, "Not this time." 2 weeks later, the Evergreen Trails community held its first open forum in nearly a decade. I didn't plan on going, but curiosity's a stubborn horse. So I showed up late, took a seat near the back, hat pulled low, arms crossed. Not to make a statement, but because it was the only chair not elbow to elbow with someone. The clubhouse was packed. Folding chairs wall to wall. People lined the hallway. Some even stood outside, listening to the audio feed through pocket radios like it was a playoff game. And up at the front, a woman I barely recognized stepped to the mic. Darlene Finch, the newly elected board secretary. Bin 57. Practical haircut. Clipboard in one hand, clicker in the other. She didn't wear a sash. Didn't fake a smile. Didn't talk like she was running for prom queen. Her voice was calm, real. "We're here tonight to rebuild trust," she said. "There's a lot to address. We won't pretend otherwise. So let's start with the audit." She clicked the remote. A spreadsheet lit up behind her. More red lines than black. The independent forensic audit covered 28 months of activity. During that time, over $160,000.00 in HOA funds were misappropriated or spent without proper documentation. The room went dead silent. You could hear the buzzing of the old fluorescent lights like they were angry too. Someone near the front coughed. Someone else muttered, "Are you kidding me?" Darlene continued. Of that, over $61,000.00 went to companies owned by Nain Dobbin's immediate family. No board votes were recorded. Several invoices were fabricated. She clicked again. A photo appeared. A drainage culvert, clogged with weeds and garbage. This culvert was billed as repaired last July. The HOA paid over $9,000.00 for the work. She let the silence do the talking. A man with a carpenter's belt still clipped to his jeans stood up. "Where's the sheriff in all this? This is fraud, straight up." Darlene nodded once. "The district attorney's office has filed charges. Nain Dobbin was taken into custody last Friday. Charges include wire fraud, misappropriation of funds, and obstruction of a public election." The room exploded. Some clapped. Others shouted questions. One woman just said, "Finally," and shook her head like she'd been waiting 10 years to say it. But Darlene wasn't done. During the search of her residence, deputies recovered multiple HOA election ballots. Many were opened. Some resealed. Some missing altogether. A woman halfway down the aisle rose to her feet, trembling. My husband and I ran last year, she said. We lost by 3 votes. Her voice cracked. Are you saying we were cheated? Darlene didn't flinch. Yes. We're working with the county elections office to review the last 3 years of results. If tampering is confirmed, we'll notify every homeowner affected. It takes courage to admit when a system failed. If you believe in second chances, but not second-rate leadership, drop a comment below. And hey, if this story has you fired up, smash that like button and subscribe, because the ending, it's not just satisfying, it's earned. As for me, I didn't stay for the cake or the polite applause at the end. I took the long way home, drove the perimeter of the ranch, headlights catching those new signs. Private easement, authorized access only. Paid for by the HOA. Installed under my oversight. Funny, isn't it? They once tried to force my gate open for the good of the community. Not that same community was guarding it. But just when I thought it was over, just when the dust had finally settled, Conrad showed up again, with a folder, and what was inside, to the company, would turn this case from financial fraud into organized embezzlement. I was halfway through fixing a leaky spigot on the north pasture when I saw the dust trail. Old sedan, paint chipped, windshield wipers still duct-taped from last winter. Conrad, he stepped out like a man who hadn't had a full night's sleep in weeks. Shirt wrinkled, eyes tired, but in his hands, a manila folder. I know you already did your part, he said, tapping the folder, but I've got something you might want to see. Inside were printed emails, ones I hadn't seen before, between Nine and a man named Leonard Marsden, a contractor who'd been blacklisted by the HOA 2 years earlier for unreliable service. Except according to these emails, Leonard wasn't unreliable. He was honest. Too honest. He'd submitted a bid to build the security gate on the west end of the neighborhood, quoted $23,000, 0 cents. But when the board got the final invoice, it showed $39,000, 0 cents. The extra $16, 0 cents, okay? Funneled through a shell company. Deposited in a trust account controlled by, you guessed it, Nain. Marsden caught it, reported it, and was quietly pushed out of the project. Where's he coming forward now, I asked. Because he kept everything, Conrad said. Every receipt, every timestamp. He's turning state's witness. This wasn't just fraud anymore. It was racketeering, coordinated embezzlement, fake companies, money laundered through family names and ghost invoices. We were talking prison time, not just fines and finger-wagging. I called Roar the next morning. She barely said a word. Just, we're escalating. Subpoenas were expanded. Witness protection initiated for Marsden. And by week's end, Nain's lawyer was begging for a plea deal. You ever wonder how far some people will go to protect a lie? Turns out, all the way into federal court. If this case has blown your mind even half as much as it did mine, tap that like button. And if you think corrupt leaders, big or small, deserve more than a slap on the wrist, sound off in the comments. We're not done yet. Meanwhile, back in Evergreen Trails, things changed fast. The new board opened the books. Meeting minutes were posted online. Monthly Q&A sessions replaced closed-door whispers. The fines stopped. So did the patrolling golf cart with the clipboard and the attitude. Residents started stepping up. A retired school teacher became treasurer. A local mechanic started overseeing maintenance contracts. Even the walking trails got restored, with actual community input. One afternoon, Darlene stopped by the ranch. Brought a homemade peach pie, still warm, and an envelope. It's a thank you, she said, from the board and the neighborhood. Inside, a notarized resolution. Formal recognition that every road cutting through Evergreen Trails was a private easement under my oversight, in perpetuity. As she drove off, I stood at my gate a long while. The wind was calm. The cameras still ran, but I hadn't checked them in weeks. Because for the first time since I'd bought this place, It felt like no one was trying to take it from me. And maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just my win. It was the start of a new story. It's strange, the way silence sounds after a storm. Not empty, not hollow, what we are, but earned. That's how it felt the morning after Darlene dropped off the pie. Just me, the pasture, and the wind. No letters in the mailbox. No banners staked in the dirt. No HOA clipboard warriors measuring the height of my grass. For the first time in a long time, it felt like the land could breathe again. I walked down to the east gate, the same one Nain had once pointed at and demanded I leave open for the good of the community. Now it had a fresh coat of matte black paint, a new keypad, and a small reflective sign that read, "Private easement, entry by permission only." Funny how things turn out. Later that week I got a surprise visitor. Conrad. Again. Only this time, he wasn't carrying folders or flash drives. He just stood by his car, hands in his jacket pockets. "I was just passing through," he said. "Thought I'd say thanks for, not letting it go." We sat on the tailgate of my truck for a bit, watching the wind roll across the fields. Then he said something I'll never forget. "A lot of us thought you were just being difficult, that you didn't want to be part of the neighborhood." I smiled. I didn't want to be part of a lie. He nodded, slow and quiet. "Well, turns out you were right. We just didn't know how right." Ever been called stubborn until the truth came out? It's so. Hit that like button and drop a comment. What would you have done if this happened in your neighborhood? Weeks passed. The new board kept their word. No more secret votes. No more friendly warnings that felt more like threats. Just neighbors trying to be neighbors again. A father and daughter now walk the trail behind my property every Saturday. They wave when they pass the gate. Sometimes I wave back. Sometimes I just watch. Because I don't need to stand guard anymore. The gate still stands. Still locked. Still mine. But now, no one demands it stay open. They'll tell this story for years. Some will say it was about power. Others will say it was about land. But if you ask me, it was always about truth, and the simple fact that sometimes you have to lock the gate to open people's eyes. So if you made it this far, thank you. Not just for watching, but for caring. Because stories like this, they don't just happen in HOA meetings. They happen in neighborhoods, towns, lives. If you've got a story like mine, share it in the comments. Let's make sure no one feels alone when standing their ground. And if you haven't yet, subscribe for more real stories that bite, burn, and maybe even heal. Because out here, truth has a way of showing up, right at the gate.